everything becomes feminized. Everything has to become about relationships. Now, this also explains the popularity of the Negro. The Negro is a primal kind of human type. And I've analyzed what I'm going to say in the vid I talked about race. So the Negro, this primal energy, is perfect for the now liberated female energy. So it all becomes a matter of cocks and pussies just pleasuring each other. There's no purpose, there's nothing else to it, there's no substance to it. It's just fucking. And the Negro is perfect for that. He's the quintessential beast, the quintessential masculine energy, void of all intelligence, of course. It's just sexual desire unleashed. That's why the Negro will just about fuck anything that moves. I mean, we've experienced this. And that's perfect for the female because she's not interested in anything else. She just wants to get her rocks off. There's no consequence to her practices. There's no reason for her to care. So that goes perfectly. Now, let's talk about sexual mutations. Like I said, mutations occur because of the reproductive cycle and the effects of the environment upon this reproduction. There's always a mutation gonna happen. Now, there's mutations that are, like I said, that are fit, that prove themselves beneficial to the organism, and then there's mutations that prove themselves to be detrimental to the survival of the organism. And I'll give you two examples. Homosexuality is a sexual mutation. Pedophilia is also a sexual mutation, and so is bestiality and necrophilia. But some of these fetishes or sexual dysfunctions are inconsequential to the system because they don't harm it. They have no effect on it. They only affect the individual. He's unfit. He will never reproduce. He's excluded from the gene pool, and the system doesn't give a shit. There's other ones like pedophilia, where the practice, the mutation, is more disruptive because it affects it unbalances the internal hierarchies. And then there's mutations like homosexuality, which are actually beneficial to the system because they promote a effete, more feminine disposition, and the feminine is more conducive towards social indoctrination. That is, the female will always submit to the most powerful masculine energy or anything that promises order. And that's why she's perfect for any social participation. She's preferred, and we can see this in nature, in ants and termites and bees, which are more primitive forms, social forms, and still the feminine is preferred over the male. A male is produced seasonally, then he's, like all males, discarded. He's expendable, as many would say. The male is always expendable because he's like the shooting star. He's supposed to prove himself, make his mark, and then vanish from existence. Now, in regards to lesbianism, another sexual mutation, it's not really a masculine form because the lesbian, no matter what, will think in feminine ways. That is, her entire focus will be on relationships. She will have very little abstract thinking. She will never think outside the box, never challenge authority, and to whatever extent she does, she will face the consequences like any other masculine energy. Of course, there's also this tendency, what people have called the masculinization of women, of taking on the appearance of the symbols of masculine energy. That is, institution uniforms. So a woman can wear a police uniform, Judge's uniform, strap on a gun, and play act the masculine role, because all are play acting at this point. The institution itself is the only masculine entity permitted. Everybody else is emasculated. They're only allowed to represent the masculine energy through these acquisitions of institutional power. That is, they prove themselves to an institution, they rise up the ladder, they acquire the ability to put on the uniform and represent the masculine energy. And that's all they do, they represent it. Once they attempt to use their masculinity, they will be, of course, reprimanded. They will be put in their place. They will be emasculated again. They will be reprogrammed. They will be put in jail and rehabilitated, as it is called. To prevent this, of course, the system has acquired the method of indoctrinating people from an early age, just like religion used to do. They train minds from an early age to think in more feminine ways, in more female ways, to be more girlish. This is increasingly the rule. We see that before, where boys were allowed to be boys, now not even that is permitted. Only feminine methods of behaving in school are permitted, and this promotes later development of behavior. The proof of human dissatisfaction with the state of affairs, that is this conflict between what people are told to think and to want and what people actually think and want, or they feel and want, is this popularity of escapist methods of exhibiting sexual energy, such as sporting events or movies, such as pornography. Pornography is indicative of this decline in sexual expressiveness and sexual satisfaction. Whenever you meet a couple to talk about how they're watching porno together, you can be sure that they're not really satisfied in their relationship, and that they're using other means to make up for this dissatisfaction, to compensate for this dissatisfaction. In fact, all fetishism is an indication of dissatisfaction, because the natural state of humanity is a state of need. Humans need constantly. Need is the sensation of existing. It's the sensation of the inherent lack in existence. That's from a metaphysical point of view. So the more dissatisfied, the more need there is exhibited in an organism, the more weak it is. This is what weakness is. It's a increase need, and strength is a decrease in need. Never, of course, reaching any absolute state. Need is always present and is always in relation to another, that one is stronger or weaker, because all value systems are based on a comparison. They're never absolutes. Therefore, even the concept of masculine and feminine are not absolutes, and they're not opposites either. Masculine and feminine coexist in every individual. We all have the masculine and the feminine energy in us. The extent to how much the masculine dominates our psyche is what determines our masculinity. The extent to how much the feminine dominates our psyche determines our femininity. And of course, this in turn determines our sexual appeal based on genetic predispositions and our fitness, and consequently our sexual success and reproduction, at least, because to just pleasure ourselves is an easy affair today, because the system makes sure that you find outlets to your sexual energy, because it could be a dangerous force, especially with males. And when males are excluded, as they are, increasingly these days, from the genetic pool, the system has to provide more and more distractions, more and more venting avenues, so that these so-called free radicals do not become a threat to its internal stability. Emasculation can only work so far because, like I said in another vid, mimetics evolves faster than genetics, and no matter how civilized we want to think we are, the past is still within us. The primal, the reptilian brain is still there, and no matter how much we're told that beauty is skin deep and that we all deserve love and this and that, we'll still function in antithesis to this, because we are organisms that have evolved to perceive sexual genetic health. And one way to perceive genetic health is symmetry, or what we call beauty. In females, it's that 7-10 rule, hip to waist ratio, which signifies a fertility. Beauty has been, by the Greeks, has been attributed to the symmetry of the face. That means the distance between the eyes in proportion to the nose, in proportion to the forehead. And especially in the forehead, the Greeks have claimed that a more sloping forehead, as in the Negro or the gorilla, is an indication of less mental sophistication, because the frontal cortex is positioned in the front of the head. And all this happens, of course, on an intuitive level. You don't have to know any of this to feel it. You don't have to know geometry to see the 7-10 rule, to feel it. The same way you don't have to know chemistry to see that a banana is ripe or an apple has worms in it, or what is an apple. You don't need a chemical analysis. You don't need an expert. Some of these ways of judging have been ingrained in us from an early age. It's only science that's bringing it to the forefront. It's making it comprehensible to us on a more lucid level. Therefore, to return to the first point, sex evolved for one and only one reason, that is reproduction. That's the only reason sex evolved, and that's the only reason these specialized roles of female and male occurred or evolved. There's no other reason for a male to be male or a female to be female. The concept male-female has no meaning outside reproduction. Now, if since then people have used sex as a way of stress relief or bonding or social inclusion or self-identification, that can all be understood once you analyze modernity, how systems work, how memes work in relation to genes, how they force sometimes a contradiction to genes, to genetic predispositions, how systems create environments that are artificial and then result in a conflict between genetic predisposition and environment. I'll give you an example of this, obesity. Genetically speaking, men have evolved to be attracted to sugars and fats because they were scarce in natural settings. But with man's intervention, sugars and fats have become prevalent. Has man adapted the capacity to judge and to limit himself? No. He's still attracted to sugars and fats, despite the fact that they're so prevalent. He's attracted to them as if he's living in a more scarce and more deprived environment, because genetically he hasn't adapted to the change in environment. So this conflict creates what we call obesity, and surprisingly it could result to an organism's death. The same way with sex. Certain practices are detrimental to the health of the individual, because sex evolved for one purpose, and yet with human intervention, sex has become something else in this environment. And I can explain what artificial versus natural is in another video. That's an easy, it's an easy one, but it's one that's most commonly used to assault my positions. You know, what is artificial? You know, everything is natural, of course, but natural also, like with all human categories, is used to designate something. I'm not going to say what it is at this moment.